Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where, oh boy, we're already able to fold in some of the announcements from Warner Brothers Discovery. They were far and few between, but if you read between the lines, we actually got a lot of intel on Thursday, as I broke down in my coverage. And we're already seeing a lot of that in play in the box office and also the streaming arenas. So it's going to be interesting already. I'm so excited. But first, let's start with Bullet Train, which seems to be shooting blanks. Not only are its critic and audience scores low, but, the trade said it got a B+ cinema score, but I couldn't confirm that anywhere. That would be not bad. But I couldn't see that on CinemaScore's Twitter account or their website, at least as of filming. But anyway, for the first weekend of August, this is definitely a Hollywood misfire. David Ayer's Suicide Squad, many of you will enjoy this. David Ayer's Suicide Squad and the original Guardians of the Galaxy are still the goal for this weekend, since those two movies created it as a major release date almost a decade ago at this point. Yet in all that time, no other movies have been able to recreate their magic in this spot, despite a lot of trying. Even last year's Suicide Squad sequel/reset couldn't repeat that magic. A couple of movies have done okay here, which is why Hollywood keeps trying, even though they have not been able to get as high as those two originally did. But Bullet Train couldn't even match those moderate performers. Which leads us to Brad Pitt. Is he really a box office draw? Or, like his ex-wife, is he better at selling magazines than movie tickets? Interestingly, they're both still riding the wave of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Every time they release a movie, people bring up Mr. and Mrs. Smith. That was almost 20 years ago, and they don't have another movie that they can have substituted in still. That was a watershed moment, though, for both of them in terms of their personal and professional lives. Although some could argue their personal lives are very much their professional lives, considering the way they've built their brands. World War Z, though, is still the biggest opening of Pitt's career. Where's the sequel, man? Remember J.A. Bayona was supposed to direct it, and then he left to go and do, I think, Jurassic World or something, because it was taking too long. I think the zombie craze might have passed, so I don't know if World War Z2 could even come out today. But don't worry about Brad. He's fine. He's got his acting Oscar finally. He's got a producing Oscar, so he's got a set. And speaking of being a producer, he's become very prolific with Plan B, the production company that he started with his other ex, Jennifer Aniston, and their manager at the time, Brad Gray. Even rumors it was their management company that set them up to create a really powerful brand, which it did for a while. I think they're even still trading very much on that. But Pitt got the production company in the divorce with Aniston, and he became the sole owner when Brad Gray went on to eventually head Paramount. Pitt, 58, has been hinting, as he does press for Bullet Train, that he might be getting ready to retire, that he's in the third act, the final act of his career, at least as a movie star. I can see him maybe stopping acting or taking fewer roles. I don't think an actor of Brad Pitt's caliber ever truly goes away, because there's always like an older role to play. I mean, look at someone like Christopher Plummer, right? You need that stately actor to come in occasionally and be the managing editor of a newspaper or something like that, right? So I could see him, though, dialing back there. But I don't think he'll leave Hollywood. I think that he will continue to produce. But I think you could even see him try his hand at directing, considering, I think, how much he at least considers himself an artist. And I think there's a point to be made for that. But just when you see how successful he is at producing, why not give directing a whirl? I would encourage him to do it. Although I'd talk to him first and make sure it wasn't going to be really bad. Just to be sure. I bring all this up because he doesn't want to go out as an actor on a movie like Bullet Train. But he won't have to, because he already has two more in the chamber. He's got Damien Chazelle's Babylon, the big Hollywood opus, which is coming up for the holiday movie season and is hopefully an awards contender. And then also the John Watts-directed action thriller, reuniting him with his Ocean's 11 co-star George Clooney for Apple. But Apple has promised a strong theatrical release there. And I'm excited to see what that looks like. But anyway, when you're a true movie star, you can suffer some pretty big flops, a lot of big flops, and still keep coming back. Just ask Clooney, and I would put an asterisk here, especially in the age of streaming. You know, things are so competitive these days, you're not going to turn your nose up at a household name, even if their track record is pretty crappy in terms of what they can deliver. But how about Sony? They bet really big on Bullet Train. Whew, I bet they're regretting that. With the current head of the studio, Brian Robbins, who apparently was not familiar with anybody's past work, because, we talked about this when Aaron Taylor Johnson got the Craven gig. You're like, oh, hey, I'm so glad you liked him in the dailies for Bullet Train, and he is very good in this movie, but, sir, have you seen all the other movies they've tried to have him star in that have tanked? Maybe not. I mean, let's see. They've already shot Craven, so they're stuck with it. But what about Bad Bunny's own Spider-Man spinoff? Will they still go forward with that? Because both of those movies were greenlit and cast with the idea that not only would they have Spidey to rely on, but also coming off of the big hit that was supposed to be Bullet Train. And 87 North Productions better also be careful. This is the production company started by Chad Stahelski and David Leitch to create a new era of fantastic stunt movies with helping stunt people level up in the industry. You won't give us our own Oscar category? That's fine. We'll go on to direct and produce movies. And that's what they're doing. The Russo brothers have done something similar with Sam Hargrave getting the Extraction movies. But I think that 87 North right now is diluting the John Wick brand by making so many knockoffs, basically, of that film. I mean, even when I was watching Bullet Train, I was like, well, this is largely John Wick. Even down to a long-haired movie star in the lead role of a similar age. But anyway, what about quality control? And speaking of that, Netflix's Day Shift hits the streamer this Friday, and that's also from 87 North. And 87 North better hope they aren't looking at back-to-back flops for the brand they're trying to develop. At least nobody was good, but nobody performed only okay. But it was during the pandemic, to be fair. As for the weekend's other new releases, Easter Sunday was able to open in the top 10, so that's good, but Universal will likely send it to digital very soon. We know how trigger-happy Universal is when it comes to sending things to digital. But I mean, come on, this is pretty good for a movie about Easter that opened in August. What the what? And A24's Bodies had a very nice per theater average opening in just 6 theaters. I'd say that's nice for Pete Davidson since he just broke up with Kim Kardashian, but speaking of personal relationships that are actually business transactions and to build brands, I think that's largely what that is too, even down to the breakup. But so he's got this nice, he's not like, I don't think he's a star of the movie, but still he's associated with it. I don't think A24 is going to be able to stoke this ember into a raging box office fire like Everything Everywhere All at Once, but it's still a very nice headline for the movie and everyone involved, from the studio to the talent to in front of and behind the camera. As for the rest of the top 10, The Bad Guys continues to be an excellent comp for DC Super Pets. Now, sure, The Bad Guys had a much better hold in its second weekend, but that was because that was during the school year, whereas DC Super Pets is a summer release and has done very well during the week. So in fact, even though DC Super Pets has a much bigger drop in its second weekend, the movies are actually still tied at the end of their second frames. DC Super Pets is not a home run, but it's still a solid hit and likely will deliver the kiddie audience that Warner Brothers Discovery is so severely lacking. On Thursday, David Zaslav made it clear that Warner Brothers feature animation is very important to the company. But at the same time, remember I said, listen to what he says, but really pay attention to what he does. Because at the same time, Warner Brothers Discovery has been taking a hatchet to their animation and live-action kids and family content divisions, particularly when it comes to streaming, saying that, oh yeah, at some point we'll rebuild this, but not anytime in the immediate future. So it could be a while before we see any more DC Super Pets, no matter how it performs, unless, of course, they greenlight a theatrical sequel, which they might, because Zazzy says he loves the theatrical model. We'll talk about Elvis in just a moment. Nope is about to cross the century mark, 3 weeks out, an important milestone, but again, there is no way that this will match the 175 domestic of Peele's other 2 movies. And we were hoping to break that trend. But looky here, Thor Love and Thunder will have a 7 in front of it, as it's just about to squeak past that benchmark worldwide. Still, this is a significant underperformer for Marvel, but I think you can already see them pivoting pretty aggressively, thanks to their Comic-Con presentation and what they've done with She-Hulk, moving it to Thursdays and pushing Andor back to give She-Hulk even more room. Marvel is clearly aware some course correction is needed across the board, and it will be interesting to see what that means for the very clearly hinted at Thor 5. Will they still make it? Will the same talent still be involved? Very interesting. And Top Gun Maverick has done it, passing Jurassic World and Titanic this week for the number 7 spot on the domestic all-time chart. Can it pass Infinity War for 6th place? I think it might, as it's still doing $5 million plus each weekend at the box office, 11 weeks out. Elvis also keeps marching on. Now, it's just at 136 domestic, but that's better than a lot of other movies that have just been barely able to cross the century mark. And it's at 251 worldwide. It's not a huge hit, but it's respectable. Although Warner Brothers Discovery feels more blood can be squeezed from this by changing up their strategy. So they made it clear this week that they're abandoning the 45-day theatrical window to HBO Max. As I predicted in my coverage based on their presentation on Thursday, I said clearly they're moving away from being a disruptor like Disney, and they're going after the more classic business strategies of Paramount and Universal. Wait till we get to iTunes. All right, so anyway, Elvis, it was announced just this week, will be available September 13th on Blu-ray, DVD, and digital purchase, but will not be available same day on HBO Max at no extra cost. Warner Brothers Discovery, as I just said, is taking things back to old school, the classic release windows, and they're going to not be a disruptor like Disney. So if you want to watch Elvis at home, you will not be able to stream it at no extra cost. You're going to have to purchase it, physical or digital copy. On that note, Disney had a bit more luck as I said, wait till we get to iTunes. Very interesting. The discussion continues there in a fascinating manner. All right, but on that note, Disney had a bit more luck on streaming this week with, what do you know, Ms. Marvel popping back into the top 10 with its penultimate episode. They showing how a double duty, I think, really did hurt this show. Obi-Wan wasn't on the week before, yet Ms. Marvel still couldn't get into the top 10, but it did here. It did here, and I think that's why we saw the changes with She-Hulk and Andor. And it's a badly needed win, by the way, for the Batgirl directors, who, even though they didn't direct this episode, are closely associated with this series. So to see it go back into the top 10 will help them get more work. That was great that Kevin Feige wrote to them and said that he wished them the best of luck. But he didn't say, call me and let's get you something. He said, let me see what you do next, which I think is code for, let's see if you can pull yourself out of this horrible situation. And if you can, well, then call me then. Which I understand. As I said in my coverage on the Batgirl cancellation, I think that Leslie Grace and these two directors in particular have been hit very hard image-wise by this cancellation. All right, so Stranger Things is still queen, but the terminal lists went up a spot to number 2, a badly needed win for Chris Pratt. He still can command an audience, at least on streaming. As I've said before, the jury is still out on his box office draw. But still, you can make a pretty penny on streaming. Don't be surprised if Amazon locks him up in some kind of streaming deal in the next couple of months or so. I'm sure that they're trying very hard to do that. And The Boys Season 3 finishes very strong, having stayed in the this was the week of its finale, having stayed in the top 5 for its entire run. Forget the top 10, top 5. And we'll see if it has any afterglow in the weeks to come if it stays in the top 10 as people binge or discover the show based on word of mouth. But that's fantastic for that show. Only Murders has slipped a bit, though, just its second week to just being barely in the top 10. I think that the second season was a little bit weaker, not as buzzy as the first season, but it's got a buzzy finale on August 23rd. They sent out those screeners to the press last week. I hope that the surprises don't leak. Be careful. Be really careful. But anyway, I think that the developments they have for season 3, which are revealed in that finale, will put Only Murders back into must-see TV for its next season. Over in movies, HBO Max got an entry here, but it's an older movie and they have to share the spot with Netflix. But at least their name's up there. Almost all the same movies here otherwise for the last few weeks, but I'm very glad to see The Sea Beast still doing so well. I did finally stream that this past week, and I thought it was excellent. Very sophisticated for a family film. I was like, wow, that gave me a lot to think about, and I'm an adult. But I think I really highly recommend it. I thought it was excellent. On Netflix's charts, The Gray Man is still on top in its second week, with new movie Purple Hearts debuting right behind it. The Sea Beast and Persuasion are also still going very strong here. Remember, Nielsen's about a month behind. Netflix is just a week behind. And here, Sea Beast and Persuasion are 4 and 3 weeks out respectively in their runs. As for shows, Virgin River is still number 1 and keeping Stranger Things in that second place position, while Manifest is picking up momentum, with all 3 seasons of the network show, which Netflix rescued, now back in the top 10, with I think fans getting ready for what they hope is a soon debut for the new exclusive to Netflix season 4. So that's pretty cool. I wonder if season 4 will just explode. Are we seeing a huge hit percolating near the surface? I believe we maybe are. Over on iTunes, now this is where things get really, also again, very interesting with Warner Brothers Discovery. Universal has another win with Minions: The Rise of Gru now on digital, giving Universal 5 movies in the top 10 here on digital movies for sale and rental. That's half. That's half the list, including even Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, which is from their Focus Features jingle, which has finally found an audience on digital. Remember when that hit theatrical? I was like, this is clearly a digital movie. And as you can see, everyone agrees. We'll get back to Universal in a moment, but also I want to point out that while it might be poorly rated, Winona Ryder is getting some love outside of Stranger Things with a direct-to-digital release. So that's nice for her. But meanwhile, after hitting digital on Wednesday, Lightyear is already out of the top 10 here on iTunes, right? Because I think most people are, hopefully, we'll find out when Nielsen catches up in a couple of weeks. Hopefully people are watching it instead on Disney Plus at no extra cost. So here we have Disney versus Universal strategy, right? And Zazie, we'll see if he was right to abandon the Disney strategy, which has taken them out of the top 10 on something like iTunes, but Disney's dominating with subscribers for Disney Plus. But look at Universal. Peacock only performing moderately as a streaming service, but look how they're dominating here. Who's making more money? It's hard to tell because there doesn't have to be the same transparency in these areas. But it's really, really interesting. And so we'll see if Zaslav was right to abandon the Disney disruptor model and instead go for a more traditional thing. Will we start to see Warner Brothers dominating the iTunes top 10 like Universal is doing right now? But what will that do to HBO Max or, the upcoming streaming service they're transitioning to? They're going to fade out HBO Max and have a new service. But will people subscribe to it, or will it perform more like Paramount Plus and Peacock if they're not doing the same kind of incentives that Disney is doing? Fascinating. All right, as for this coming week, no major film releases, so all the new content is on streaming. Tuesday, Lock and Key, Season 3 on Netflix. Wednesday, I Am Groot. 5 of those shorts will all drop on Disney Plus. It's good. The Guardians of the Galaxy, after getting so shortchanged in Thor Love and Thunder, it's going to be interesting to see Marvel start to slowly bring them back as they get ready for the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and, of course, the holiday special coming up. All right, Friday, Netflix. They have the new movie Day Shift. They have 13 the Musical, Season 3 of Never Have I Ever, and Korean thriller A Model Family. Secret Headquarters was going to go to theaters, but now it goes to Paramount Plus as a movie. A League of Their Own, that series, drops on Amazon. Hulu has This Fool, and then the first 3 episodes of the drama 5 Days at Memorial, which is based on real-life events during the Hurricane Katrina tragedy. And that's this week's Movie Math. What are you watching? What do you plan to watch? What are your thoughts on this week's box office and streaming numbers? And what do you think of Warner Brothers Discovery's changes to their strategy, now that we can see it a little bit in action and you have a disruptor like Disney for comparison? Do you think that Paramount Universal is the better path to follow? Oh, it's going to be fun. All right, share those thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.